Hello and welcome to worship for Aberlour Parish Church. This week we grapple with two readings, the first of which is a story of grappling itself, a literal wrestling match. We find Jacob at the banks of the Jabbok River and this stranger who comes and wrestles with him until daybreak. And in our Gospel reading, another striver and struggler, Jesus' parable of the persistent widow who seeks justice for herself and won't stop until she gets it. We come seeking God's goodness in our lives. Let's worship God. Our first reading today comes from Genesis 32 and verses 22 through 32. Let's listen for the word of God. That same night, Jacob got up, took his 2 wives, his 2 concubines, and his 11 children, and crossed the Jabbok River. After he had sent them across, he also sent across all that he owned, but he stayed behind, alone. Then a man came and wrestled with him until just before daybreak. When the man saw that he was not winning the struggle, he hit Jacob on the hip, and it was thrown out of joint. The man said, "Let me go. Daylight is coming." "I won't, unless you bless me," Jacob answered. "What is your name?" the man asked. "Jacob," he answered. The man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. You have struggled with God and with men, and you have won. So your name will be Israel." Jacob said, "Now tell me your name." But he answered, "Why do you want to know my name?" Then he blessed Jacob. Jacob said, "I have seen God face to face, and I am still alive." So he named the place Peniel. The sun rose as Jacob was leaving Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Even today, the descendants of Israel do not eat the muscle which is on the hip joint, because it was on this muscle that Jacob was hit. And our second reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18 and verses 1 to 8. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to teach them that they should always pray and never be discouraged. In a certain town, there was a judge who neither feared God nor respected people. And there was a widow in that same town who kept coming to him and pleading for her rights, saying, "Help me against my opponent." For a long time, the judge refused to act. But at last, he said to himself, "Even though I don't fear God or respect people, yet because of all the trouble this widow is giving me, I will see to it that she gets her rights. If I don't, she will keep on coming and finally wear me out." And the Lord continued, "Listen to what that corrupt judge said. Now, will God not judge in favour of his own people who cry to him day and night for help? Will he be slow to help them? I tell you, he will judge in their favour and do it quickly. But will the Son of Man find faith on earth when he comes?" Amen. I wonder, have you ever come to acquire an injury that had a good story behind it, or that was a wee bit difficult to explain? Here's Jacob in our first reading, who has come to the river Jabbok and sent his family, the 2 wives, the 2 concubines, the 11 children, and in fact everything he has over the river ahead of him, and him staying behind. The next day, when he joins them, he's got this limp. His hip is out of joint. How did it happen, you imagine, they asked. And Jacob has to answer, "Well, you see, I was there on my own, and then this man came, and he wrestled me, and kept wrestling me, and through the whole night, I wouldn't let go, and he wouldn't let go." And then Jacob is realising that this man has much more, and he's telling this story, and it all sounds so unlikely, you imagine. This is a reading at a crossroads in Jacob's life. It's a story of him crossing over this river, the Jabbok, a river that serves as much as a symbol for the moment in Jacob's life that we witness, as much to signify the physical body of water that it was. Because this story has a before and an after. Before is the history of Jacob's life so far, and in particular the strife with his brother Esau. You see, much earlier Jacob had tricked his blind father Isaac into blessing him, the younger brother, to the righteous outrage of Esau, the older brother, who swore to kill Jacob. Since that point, Jacob has run away from his family, come to his uncle Laban, laboured 7 years for the hand of marriage of the beautiful Rachel, only to find himself at the hands of a trick. At the last moment, the veil is revealed, and it's Rachel's older sister Leah. Jacob labours another 7 years to be allowed to marry Rachel. EastEnders has nothing compared to some of the storylines of the book of Genesis. And now we've got Jacob. Before him, on the other side of the river, He knows he's about to face Esau again. He sent messengers and gifts ahead of him, but for the first time since having robbed that blessing, Jacob's going to see Esau and doesn't know what's likely to happen. This is a scene of anticipation, of apprehension, of anxiety. Jacob's about to face the music and confront the trickery of his past and move to an after that he doesn't yet know. God is not absent from any moment of our lives, and God wasn't absent from Jacob at this moment either. But when we think of desiring God's presence with us in the trying times, I don't know how often we would think to imagine that God shows up in the form of someone who starts wrestling with us. John Bell, in a sermon on this passage, whose name you might know from our hymn books, asks, slightly tongue-in-cheek, which sport Christianity might be best compared to. He asks, is Christianity like cricket, which from the outside looks absurdly dull, but which enthusiasts are keen to assure us is really exciting? Is it like tennis, fairly predictable, but with the word love used in public from time to time? Is it like golf, something essentially easy, you just put the ball in the hole until you see the size of the ball and how far away the hole? Is it a team game like rugby, which needs people who are light on their feet up front and people who are very solid to prop up the rear? Is it like snooker, something which only a few folk play very well, but which has a vast army of armchair critics? John Bell suggests no. God's favourite sport isn't any of the above. It doesn't require any specialist equipment like tennis. It doesn't involve mainly one part of the body like football. It doesn't have to be played at a special venue like curling. The sport that Christianity is most like is wrestling. At the heart of our faith is the fact that to be a Christian is to be involved in struggle, to be blessed wrestlers. Blessed wrestlers. And I think that image and that idea has a near foundational power to it, underpinning much of how we might understand the life of faith. There are two senses in which I think we hear it clearly in the readings today. The first sense, wrestling to see the things of God break forth in the world. And the second, wrestling as a way of understanding the encounter with the divine. Wrestling with God. The first. Wrestling to see the things of God in the world. It's part of our calling to wrestle, to grapple for truth, amidst voices that sway and persuade this way and that. To wrestle for hope, amidst a sea of disappointments and a world of heartache. To struggle for faith when the voices of doubt are loudest. Or, like the woman in Jesus' parable in our second reading, to strive for justice, even in the face of unlikely odds, even in the face of an unjust judge. Jesus tells a story of a widow pleading her cause, which she knows is right, but her only hope is to go to a man in power who just doesn't care. Until she knocks at the door, a first time, a second time. She pleads a third time, a fourth. She keeps coming again and again until even this unjust judge, who we're told neither fears God nor respects people, still, finally, does his job and sees that she gets her rights. Today you might say that the squeakiest wheel gets the most oil. But it can take a lot of squeaking. The wrestle for justice isn't for the faint-hearted, but nor is it something that any of us are excluded from playing our part in. And if we're ever tempted to imagine that the issue is too big for us or that we're too small to be making a difference, Jesus' parable is for us. The widow in this parable is a mouse facing the elephant, the David against Goliath, or in the African proverb quoted often by the late Desmond Tutu, who struggled himself so hard against the evils of racist apartheid in South Africa. Anyone who thinks they're too small to make a difference has never spent a night with a mosquito. So we wrestle for justice. And we're to back up those in this world who are like this widow in Jesus' parable, seeking the right in the face of a power which is indifferent and unyielding in their failure to do justice. The cry of drought refugees in Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, ravaged by a drought famine caused by climate change that they've not contributed to. Ukrainians defending their country and identity from the aggressive military campaign in which the Russian state seeks to relabel, to erase Ukrainian sovereignty, to occupy by deathly force. The South Pacific Islanders, who cry that their land is vanishing to rising sea levels. Or the couples who have waited too long for the church to recognise that their love for each other is from God, no less for them than anyone else for their sharing the same gender. The people of colour who experience marginalisation, discrimination, racism and inequality, too often denied by those who pretend that equality in the text of the law might be enough to achieve equality in daily lived reality. It is not. The person signing on for universal credit, for whom there's an inbuilt delay always of 6 weeks before you might see the support you're entitled to. And actually a government often unable to process claims in under 10 or 12 weeks. Meantime, apparently, people are expected to live off thin air. The cast of those in our world, knocking at the door of justice, persistently, determinedly, righteously, is long. They are the widows of Jesus' parable, and we are called to struggle alongside, to wrestle for God's goodness in a world where we long to see it at hand. At the end of Jesus' parable that we heard, he asks, "Will the Son of Man find faith on earth when he comes?" Will the Son of Man find faith on earth? What is our faith if it is not a wrestling faith? We're on to that second sense of wrestling. Wrestling as an encounter with the divine. Wrestling with God. God comes to Jacob, appearing as a man who just starts wrestling. God comes to Jacob. Now that's not what we pray for when we ask for God's presence in our life. I can't imagine Jacob imagine the night before this showdown with Esau that he planned to be wrestling this man, angel, God until sunrise. Yet this was the faith of Jacob, that he wrestled, that he struggled, and that when his wrestling was done, The man said, "Let me go." And Jacob, in an act of thrawn defiance, as much as sheer gritty faith, says, "I will not let you go, not until you bless me." Jacob, who had thieved a blessing from Esau so far back, is now blessed after the struggle of a faith that would not let go. And is blessed in that way that indicates a profound significance in the Bible. A new beginning, a different chapter. He's given a name, Israel, that became the name of his people and descendants. A shorthand for the people of God wrestling with this grappling faith of Jacob. But while Jacob, Israel, is blessed, he comes away too with that limp, itself clearly of significance to the biblical writers and to Jacob's descendants. We get this almost editorial note at the end. This is why to that day descendants of Israel do not eat the meat of the hip joint. There's something deeply significant then about this woundedness and blessedness of Jacob. Our living comes with no pain-free guarantee. Our faith is to be a faith that takes us into and through times of pain. Our wrestling with God is sometimes an exercise in clinging on, even when we are wounded. But our woundedness is not necessarily a weakness. Indeed, those who live with and through hurt or pain are often the strongest people among us. And what's more, in pain can be the resource for being a healing presence themselves on earth. Henri Nouwen writes a book called The Wounded Healer. It's an extended reflection taking up the image and example of Christ who is crucified, but also the source of all healing. Nouwen asks, how might we be wounded healers in the world? It can be that those who have known great pain, indeed who know it still, are often those with the power for the sort of love which makes a true difference to others. The sort of healing empathy, understanding kindness, quiet solidarity, which can be truly transformative for people. These are, by the way, qualities of care that I see often in the folk of this congregation, in ways that I find striking and inspiring. But more importantly, that I know are ways which are received appreciatively and come as nothing less than the love of God in concrete form to those who receive it. These are acts of ministry to be thankful for. They don't just happen. They are real blessings in our community. When Jesus asks, will the Son of Man find faith on earth? I believe it's that type of faith Jesus is asking about. Faith persistent in the struggle for justice, like the widow. Faith willing to grapple and wrestle with the big and painful things of life and hold on nonetheless. Faith which asks for blessing, and through which seeks to be a blessing in the world, not despite woundedness, but precisely as wounded healers. So go, be blessed wrestlers, grapplers of God. Strive for the right. Be blessing to the world. And know yourself as one whom God, like with Jacob, addresses, holds, names, and gives blessing. Amen.
Lord, speak to me that I may speak in living echoes of thy tone, as thou hast also let me speak. Thy erring children lost and known. Oh, lead me, Lord, that I may lead the wandering and the wavering feet. Oh, feed me, Lord, that I may feed thy hungering ones with manna sweet. Oh, fill me with thy fullness, Lord, until my very heart overflow in kindling thought and glowing word, thy love to tell, thy praise to show. Oh, use me, Lord, use me, even me, just as thou wilt, and when and where, until thy blessed face I see. Thy rest, thy joy, thy glory
So go, grappling and wrestling as you do, and seek God's goodness in our world. And go with the blessing of God, the blessing of Father, Son and Holy Spirit be with you this day and for evermore. Amen.